Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's kind of special strategy session. My name is Andy Baldacci. I'm the CEO of SaberSim, and I'm joined by Jordan Chand, who's our head coach. And so, yeah, this week, this is a really fun one. It has been a long time in the making, but we're excited to reveal the brand new SaberSim. Before I pull back the curtain and show everything, what I wanted to stress is that this really has been a long time in the making. And if you're used to SaberSim, you don't need to worry. We didn't change everything around, and this isn't really just a facelift. What we want to do is, after years of working with the product, talking with our subscribers, we found areas that were sticking points, things that just made it, where the app made it harder to accomplish the goal than it needed to be. So a lot of what we did is just made it more usable, made it work the way you want it to work. And along with that, we've also collected a ton of feedback about features that people were looking for that range from making it easy to reset all game totals to some bigger things. And we've combined a lot of that into this launch as well. So what we're doing right now is we're having a limited beta of this new version of the app. And anyone that wants to sign up for it can head over to beta.sabersim.com to check it out. If you want to get into a Slack channel to talk about the beta, to talk about bugs you run into, things like that, just DM Jordan and he'll get you added to that channel. But I really want to stress that please join that channel. Please share your feedback because we want to keep improving on this. We're not ready to release this quite yet, but we do think within the next week or two, we'll get any kinks remaining ironed out and get this out there. But we, again, want to make this as strong of a product as possible for you. So any and all feedback you have, positive or negative, please share it. But yeah, why don't we just jump into it? What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited.
All right, so I'll add my screen right now. And so this is the new SaberSim. You'll notice immediately we have dark mode. You can switch back to light mode if you'd like, but I'm guessing most people are going to want to use the dark mode. I'll actually switch over to football because we do have projections up for week 1. So we'll get those switched over now and just make sure we're on the main slate. We should be good here. But yeah, what we're going to do is just really walk through everything that's new here. We'll show you what's different, answer any of your questions along the way. So chime in the chat if you have any questions. If anything's unclear already, just let us know. But the first thing that you're going to notice will be, we've got a couple options up here for the games. So we have pretty much the standard view here, which will show all the games. You can scroll through them. We added this compact view. I'm honestly just going to probably use compact view exclusively. It just makes it super easy to show everything, but it is a little bit tighter. So if you're on a smaller screen, you might want to go to that expanded view. But this will make sure that however many games are on the slate, they're visible on your screen. You can still do all the editing that you would like. But the first thing I want to mention is I kind of alluded to it, but if you make a few changes to the projections, first you can batch those changes so that rather than after you make any one, they get applied, you can do them all at once. But a lot of people that we've been talking to go through and make a handful of changes. And if things change, whether there's new lineups out or they just disagree with those edits they made earlier, it's kind of a pain in the ass to go in and manually reset each individual one. So we now have a reset games projection, which will reset all of them in one click. And to be completely honest, there's going to be a lot of things that seem pretty small like that we've added in here because we know by talking to you, by hanging out in Slack, by reading the Twitter DMs, the emails, everything, that there's just a lot of little annoying things in the current SaberSim. We try to clean up those things. I don't think any of those are going to be revolutionary, but it should just make your everyday lineup building process a lot smoother with a lot fewer headaches. The other thing that super excited about is making it easy to just shift around columns. You can also go in here, edit the columns, rearrange them, just remove some columns because not every data point matters for every player. So if you know exactly what matters for you, you can customize this the way you want it. You also might have seen that we have this option to show removed players. That's something that has been requested, I don't know, more times than I can count. But the easiest way to actually show how this works is to go to one of our new features, which is the player pool filter. And so this typically, once we release it, this is going to be preloaded with the minimum projection filter so that anyone who has a projection of, I guess for football on the main slate, we'll do 3 just to make sure it includes the defenses there. But you can also, I guess, add a lot of other filters in here based on players, games, teams. You can look at their odds, you can look at their totals, you can look at a lot of other things to make it really easy to get the player pool dialed in the way you want to without manually going through and clicking a bunch of different players.
Yeah, and on this one, sorry. I was just going to say, I know we actually had a question yesterday in office hours from Clement about asking how you could maybe just bulk remove all players over a certain ownership projection in your pool. And that is kind of how we do that. So in that new feature tab, there is also an option to exclude players that are over a certain ownership, for example. I think yesterday it was like 20 or something like that. Makes it really easy to remove them. And again, as Andy mentioned, another feature that has just been really commonly requested is you can use that gear here now to just only view the players that are actually going to be in your pool, that are actually going to be in your lineups.
Right. So what we do is we have over here this filter tab. This will show all the players that have been removed by a filter, but it can still make your player pool messy. So yeah, as Jordan said, you can go over here, hit this toggle, and we will then remove any player from the visible pool that isn't actually in the pool. And yeah, this is where, when we go live, the minimum projection threshold will live in that, because this is, I can be kind of anal about things, but like it used to be in the build settings window, and now it's fine, but it wasn't clear the impact that was having on the player pool, because you were doing that after you've already made your adjustments in here. And so for newer players, oftentimes you would have someone who would, on a short slate, lock a player. The build would fail because that player was actually below the minimum point threshold. And this will just make that not an issue. But the big thing we're trying to push here is just being more transparent on what's happening behind the scenes. And so by showing you right up front, this is your pool. If they are shown here, they're eligible to be in your lineups. And if they're removed, they're not. It just makes that a lot clearer. You can also go full screen, which just makes this table a bit bigger. For people who aren't messing around with game totals as much, this is probably going to be the view that you want to look at, where you'll be able to just see as many of the players as possible on the screen and make those edits. And when we do go live, we're probably going to have some slight variations of this. I think what we'll do is on wider screens, just show all of this without being buried in a menu. But what we want to do for now, though, is at least show you what's in here, what's different, even if things are going to be changing a little bit in the future. One thing that you might have noticed as well is we've got a couple new columns here. We have min and max exposure. This is one of the other feature requests that has been at the top of the list for a very long time. And we've got it. So now if you have specific exposures that you're looking for, rather than having you do a test build, rather than having you tweak projections to try to get close to what you're looking for, you can just put in the range of exposures that you're looking for. And again, we still do feel strongly that you don't want to make too many arbitrary decisions until you see how the builds are shaping up. But this is also the most direct way to make those adjustments. Like I was saying, you don't have to do the test build, be like, oh, I'm a little bit low on Mahomes, so I want to boost his projection, and hopefully I'll get a little bit more of him. You can just tell us you want at least 30% Mahomes, or no more than 20%. Whatever it is, you can put that in right here, and your build will automatically have all of that applied. On that one, Jordan, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know from hosting office hours, being in the support inbox, I'm sure you've seen that request a lot.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think folks are going to be pretty excited about that one. I think you nailed it. It does take some of the guesswork out of this here for you. If you've ever run a test build and maybe been a little bit too highly exposed to a certain player, and you're just not exactly sure how to adjust the projections or the team projections to get the exact exposure that you're hoping for in your next build, this should take some of that guesswork out of the equation. So maybe that you've decided that I don't know, for the opening slate of football here, that at most you want to be 2 times as exposed to the field on Mahomes or something like that. Instead of kind of trying to fiddle around with the Chiefs projection and figure out the best way to do that, you can go ahead and set here, I guess, maybe 29 or 30% maximum exposure, and we'll meet that for you in the final build. So definitely a pretty exciting one there. I don't know if we wanted to mention here too, Andy, the opportunity to upload that via CSV.
Yeah, and so I know for a lot of power users, they're using SaberSim, but they have their own spreadsheets. They have their own work that they're doing separately, and a lot of that will come from people just they have their own formulas, their own systems, or whatever it may be to determine the exposures that they're looking for. And this isn't something that the average player really is messing around with, but that's okay. We are making a deliberate shift to give our power users the control that they've been looking for, the control that's been lacking in the app. And so if you're someone who has your own formulas for coming up with exposures, you can now upload those exposures right here rather than having to set them all manually. So if you've got that CSV file with all the players, whether or not you have your own projections or ownership, you can include the min and max exposure right there and just in one upload, get all of that applied in here into the build. Yeah, so Anthony just asked if we could upload those, and the answer is yes. That is kind of the 1-2 punch of this, where we want to give people more control, but we also want to stick to what we said is our goal really is to automate away the busy work. So rather than forcing you to make all these tweaks by hand, we want to give you the tools that let you do these things in bulk and save time so you can focus your time on adding value wherever possible. But I think, honestly, that's the main part for this first the first step of the build process. One thing I realized I didn't mention is, again, we have spent a crazy amount of time tweaking this, working on this, using it ourselves, getting it to be as easy of a transition as possible from the current SaberSim. And I don't think there's going to be a steep learning curve at all, because we're really didn't take anything away. Instead, we've added more functionality, but done so in a way that's intuitive and easy to use. But if this is just too much for you to deal with when football is starting right up, you can always click this link right here to be brought back to the current version of SaberSim, so that you don't have to be forced to learn something right at the start of the season. And we plan to leave that up for at least the next few months. So we're not going to surprise you once we do decide to completely migrate over to this. We'll let everyone know so that there's enough notice. But again, we're going to be collecting feedback all along the way so that we can get all the bugs ironed out and as many new improvements in as possible.
Yeah, real quick, I was just going to show off 2 more other things that I think are cool here. If you want to open that upload pop-up one more time, there is just one quality of life change in there that I think people are going to like. So there is now a checkbox here that says apply to all slates as well. So if you're like me and you typically play most of the slates going on in a given night, like baseball, you're playing the main slate, the turbo, the night slates, all these different minor slates. You can now bulk upload your projections for the slate if you're using custom projections and just mass apply it to all slates. So you don't have to go through this process over and over again for every slate that you're playing. So,
and so the one thing to point out with that is this is something that we're going to continue improving. But the way it works right now is, when you're uploading the projections, the players have to be on the slate that you're uploading for. So for baseball, you want to find an all-day slate. For football, you want to find that full week slate. Go to that, make your uploading, and it'll apply to all the other ones. But if there's a game not on the slate where you're uploading from, it won't find those players. And again, this is something that we do plan to address not too far in the future, but it's surprisingly a complicated problem to solve. But so that's the one caveat I want to add there, is that if you are doing that bulk upload, make sure to just go to the slate that has the most games. And really for football, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Find the main slates or the all-day slates, which will eventually get posted. It'll carry over to all the showdowns, all the turbos, everything else, and you'll be all set there. So you're not constantly jumping back between slates, uploading different CSVs. So that's one of those things that honestly, like, got people suggested that a few times, but it was more just as we started thinking more about this, we've just spent a lot of time figuring out what are these quality of life improvements, as Jordan called it, that people not know they want, but when they see it, it's going to make a really big difference. And so that is one of the big ones there. And so jumping into the build settings. This got a little bit of a facelift, but didn't change significantly. However, there are a few things to point out here. The two, probably the most important ones, are pool size, so that now you can set how large of a lineup pool do you want us to build for you. Some people do a lot of adjustments to exposures in that third step of the build process, and they don't want to have to expand the lineup pool to get what they're looking for, so maybe they want a bigger pool. Other people might be doing a build really close to lock, and they're just trying to get something in. They are not concerned about having the biggest pool. They really just say, I need this as fast as possible. I need to get some lineups in. So they're going to choose a smaller pool to maximize speed. The one right next to it is min uniques. This is something that we didn't have before, but now we do. This is pretty much just a brute force way of forcing diversity into your lineups. You just tell us how many unique players must each lineup have. The default's just going to be one. Again, we don't want to build you duplicate lineups. But one word of caution here, or a couple actually, is that first, the higher you set this, the slower your build is going to go, because we just have to build more and more lineups to find unique ones. For the most part, it's not going to be a big issue, but if you start going 3 or more uniques on a larger pool, it's going to take some time. That being said, though, I really wouldn't go too aggressive with increasing this, because as you start forcing more and more uniques into the lineups, you're going to be sacrificing the average quality of the lineups, because there's a reason certain players are showing up such a high frequency of the time. And by saying, I want to make sure all of my lineups have 3 uniques, you're going to exclude a lot of those. And so just keep that in mind. And a feature that's actually related to that is max exposure. This is something that we have in the current app, but to be honest, it doesn't work the way it seems like it should. And this is actually one of the more complicated things for us to build, because the way it works right now is, if you're watching this, you know that when we build lineups for you, rather than just building the exact number of lineups you request, we build you a pool of lineups much larger than that, so you can quickly make adjustments to your exposures and then instantly see the new lineups. For max exposure, the way it works in the current app is it limits the exposure of any player in your lineup pool. So if you set that to 70, it would say, okay, we're building a pool of 1,000 lineups. No more than 700 of those lineups can have a single player in it. But when you then filter that down to the 20, 50, 100, however many lineups you're building, it's very likely there's going to be some clumping of players in that smaller subset. It's going to put you over the threshold that you set there. We have spent a lot of time figuring out how to get this to work the way it's expected to. And the way it works now is whatever you put in for the max exposure, that will be the maximum exposure of any players in your final lineups. And so you'll actually see, once we do a build, this max exposure column in the build, not on the home screen, but in the build, will have whatever you put in here. So if I set that to, let's just say 60, all the players you'll see in the max exposure column be filled in with 60, and we'll follow that there. Other bit, stacking basically works the way you would expect it. There's a bit more options around like select all, remove all. Just visually, it looks a little bit nicer, but nothing new in there really. And I think those are the main features here. But was there anything else that you want to talk about, Jordan?
No, I will say on that stacking tab, as recently as this week, we have had a request for that select all and remove all option. So I think that was from B Crimson earlier in office hours this week. So that's there. Also, a common request, again, just a lot of small changes here, but these logos should make it a lot easier to quickly take a look at this and get the teams you want in or out of your stacking rules. I know the current app with just the team abbreviations can be a lot to look at when you're looking at all 26 teams or whatever it is for a slate like this. So the logo should make things a lot better there. So pretty excited about that. We did get a couple quick questions in. I think this might be a good opportunity to answer these, but I think this was when we were talking about the uploading to all slates. Devin asked about ownership, and he said different slates would obviously have different ownership projections. So I think in a situation like that, Devin, obviously you would just want to be careful. You wouldn't want to bulk upload ownership projections that were intended to be the main slate, apply them to all slates.
Well, I'll need to talk with Matt to figure out exactly how this works on the technical side of it. But in my opinion, the only things that should carry over to all slates should be the point projection.
Okay,
because even exposures as well.
Yeah.
You're gonna, if you're uploading to a main slate and it gets carried over to a showdown, those are gonna be entirely different exposures that you would want. So I again don't know exactly how this works right now, but I will talk to the team because unless someone strongly disagrees with that, I feel like what should carry over is the point projection.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Another question that came in, Anthony said, previously, sometimes when uploading custom projections and ownership, the tool would get confused by players with the same name. Luis Garcia, Will Smith, for example. Yep. Has this bug been fixed? And I know we've been talking about that a little bit behind the scenes here.
Yes. So that has been fixed. It's going to be hard for me to show it right now. But basically what happens if you upload, if there are two players with the same name, what we do is we'll show a modal right after you upload it, where it'll say there were two Will Smiths. Which one gets which projection? So it'll be like you'll see the point projection next to them, and there'll be a drop down where you can pick. It'll show the player name, position, and team, and you can assign which projection gets goes to which player on which team. Because that's the thing. There's just a lot of these little annoyances that frankly do add up, and we've been wanting to address them for a while, and so we've just continuously been adding them into this new version of SaberSim. And I think as you start using it, you're going to find a bunch of little things. I was like, oh, okay, that used to be a huge pain in the ass, and now it just works.
Right.
So that was really our goal with this, is to catch that. And if there are things we missed, please let us know, because again, we're really committed to continuously building on this and adding to it.
Awesome. Cool. And then one more question that I think we'll continue to hear pretty often until we get this live. But Jim said, when is this going to be available?
So, Jim, this is available right now. If you go to beta.sabersim.com, the only thing I would ask, though, is to DM Jordan in Slack so that he can get you added to the beta Slack channel. The reason for that is because we're incredibly committed to hearing your feedback and making improvements. And so that all we ask is that if you're playing around with this, that you let us ask you some questions, that you share your feedback so we can make improvements. But yeah, so right now, if you go to beta.sabersim.com and have an active account, you'll be able to log in with your normal account information and get brought right to this. But again, please DM Jordan in Slack. I think it just says SaberSim-Jordan for username, and he'll get you added to the channel in there. There's a few bugs that have been reported in there that we're working on fixing, and we're going to have Matt from our team actively monitoring that channel to make quick fixes and get everything working the way people expect it to.
Yep. I've already got a few DMs starting to light up here, so I will make sure as soon as we're done here that I get everybody in there, but I'm excited to see the excitement around this. So
awesome. So we'll jump into a build. You'll see, just visually it looks a little bit different. But again, nothing in here is going to be that different than what you're used to. If you've been using SaberSim, you'll be able to use the new version without any major adjustments at all. If anything, it's going to just help you go through the normal process a bit easier. And so it looks like we might be hanging up a little bit on this. And so what I can do is ping Matt, have him look into this one. And again, this is why we're stressing, like, this is currently a beta. So there's going to be a few bugs. There's going to be a few kinks that we have to iron out. And if you run into any of those, let us know. And we're going to keep working on improving them. But let me just jump back in here. And so we'll delete this build. And what I'll do is okay, I see what happened, actually. I accidentally jumped back to the preseason week, and that is not going to be good because we don't have any projections in there for the preseason. So let's jump back over here. And one of the things that we've also been working on that's not yet in here is behind the scenes, we've actually been rebuilding our API. And that might not mean much to you. It honestly didn't mean a lot to me. But what the API does is it handles all the requests that are coming from the app that you're playing around with to our backend to get all the data that we're looking for. And there have been, just over the years, some improvements that we've noticed could be made. And we've just entirely rebuilt that. And it's in process right now for football. I would expect that once we get this redesign out, it will reload. It will get added in probably by the end of October, I would guess. And what you'll notice once that is done is that the speed is going to be a lot faster, whether you're switching between tabs or whatever it may be. That's going to be just a lot more responsive, and just in general will be faster, because that's something that we've noticed ourselves is when we've been bouncing around between tabs. It's sometimes can be a little bit slow. Jordan, do you actually want to open this up on your end and see if you're able to get it working?
Yeah, let me go ahead and give that a try here.
So I'm wondering if I set too many weird restrictions on it as I was just kind of messing around. And yeah, these are the joys of doing this live. And again, why we want to make sure it's in an extended tested beta period, so that when week 1 comes around, we've got all these things figured out. All right.
Okay, I've got.
How's it going on your end, Jordan?
Looks good. I'm going to run a build here real quick and make sure that goes through.
Okay, I actually have mine up.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so what we can see is what I was talking about before, where I put in that 60 max exposure right here. And so that just applies to everyone in the pool. And you see that our exposures all match that. I did this build for DraftKings. So we do have to make a couple adjustments to get the lineups unlocked. And then let's see if this works. Yep, so we're good there. And on the left is where you're going to notice the biggest changes. I mean, just in general, the design does look a bit different. You can make some adjustments here to then get, if you want to really dig into the lineups themselves, see more of those at once. You can adjust how big this is. If you're trying to do some more exposure adjustments, you can do that. You can even just collapse this entirely, just look at the lineups. So you're going to get a lot of little things like that just to make it a bit more flexible in how you're working on it. But to go beyond just the look and feel and usability, probably the thing I'm most excited about is you can see we've got 2 magnifying glasses. So what we have is, you're probably familiar with our filters, where if you click on magnifying glass next to a player's name, we're going to show you all lineups that have Davante Adams in them. However, we didn't really have a way to say, I want to see all lineups with this player, but not that player. Now we do. So maybe you want to see all the lineups with Davante Adams, but not Dalvin Cook. I don't know why you would want to see that, but just quickly showing the option. And this is what we're really trying to do with this third step of the build process of dialing in the exposures, is give you the tools to do much more finely tuned adjustments to your lineups, where you can actually dial in and say, okay, what do each of these combinations look like? I want to see I want to make sure in general that if I have Davante Adams, I do have Aaron Rodgers. And I can see already that without putting any rules in, anything like that, all of my Davante Adams lineups come with Aaron Rodgers. But then you can do some more digging and say, okay, like what does it look when they're there and another player isn't? And you can unselect them. If you don't like the lineup, you can dig into the pool, find more to add them there. And this is, again, just another tool in the tool belt to make it easier to get the exact lineups that you're looking for. Because the big thing that we do to position ourselves as different from the competition is we want to just out of the box give you a foundation of strong lineups that you can dial in and make your own. We don't want you to have to program in dozens of rules and settings and everything to get lineups that make any sense. And we're not trying to say that all you have to do is click a few buttons and you'll start printing money, but we do want to give you a bit of a head start compared to the other tools. So what we've really focused on here is just making it easy as possible for you to start with that strong foundation and then make some adjustments, make some renovations to get those lineups the way you want them to be. Another thing that I know Jordan is excited about is on the team stacks. This used to be set up in a way where you would only see the stacks of teams that were in your lineups. So if you wanted more of the Saints and you didn't have any of them, you would have to either massively expand your lineup pool to try to find a stack of them, go to the home screen and increase your team total to try to encourage it. And again, it was just one of those things that was pretty annoying. And so what we've done is just make sure that you can see all of the team stacks there to add exposures. The other bit is, like before, you can move these columns around. We have, we're probably going to change the order for these columns when we do release it. But I think it's nice to see ownership next to exposure and then be able to adjust it all here. But just as before, you can click this button, add columns, remove them, change the order, all of that. And those are the big things on the build screen as far as my notes go. Was there anything that jumps out to you, Jordan?
One thing I realized that we haven't mentioned yet so far, but this applies to both step 3 and step 1, is the pagination of most of these lists is now gone. All of these things, your lineups, your player exposures, your player projections on step 1 should all be on an infinite scroll. So it automatically loads new players when you're scrolling down. You don't have to keep clicking back and forth on pages. Definitely another thing that just makes the app feel a lot nicer to use as you're going through. But I thought I would mention that. Otherwise, I think you've kind of well described here everything we've got new on step 3. I know people are probably going to come up with some very inventive uses for the filters. Pretty excited about that. We get questions all the time in office hours about people running a build and asking if they can see some very specific combination of players, and you now should be able to do that. So pretty exciting there.
Yeah, and one thing, this is going to be pretty hard to show, but I'll try to, yeah, okay. So this, on a desktop, it's going to be really hard to get mobile to look right, but this is probably the closest we can get. Let me actually probably just close this, and I'll just try to shrink the browser really small. Yeah. So obviously we're going to fix this so that it just gets added to the mobile menu. But most of us, as we're playing DFS, are going to do it on a desktop computer. There's only so much we can do to make it easier to use on mobile. But right now, our current app, when you go to app.sabersim.com on your phone, it just doesn't work that well. It's confusing. There's elements that cover each other up. It just isn't a good experience. And so what we've done is instead redo the entire mobile experience so that while we're not recommending you build 200 lineups from scratch on your phone, you could, and including the entry editor, everything else, it's going to work. It won't be as easy to make your adjustments, but the actual process is going to be, it's going to work. Whereas right now, I can't say that with a straight face for the current app. And so the way I actually probably plan to use this myself is not to do the entire builds here, but to use this for late swap, to use this for the entry editor. It's like, okay, I don't want to have to sit around my computer all day, all night when I'm playing. I want to watch the games. I want to maybe go out and watch the games with friends, whatever. But like, I want to know that if something changes, I'm going to be able to run a quick swap, run a late swap, and get the players in that I need to. And you can now do that. And again, if you're just playing a handful of lineups, or for whatever reason you're on your iPad or something, you can do the complete builds from the mobile, your mobile device now, and that is a major improvement from the way it works right now. So that was the last part I wanted to touch on. we'll probably be releasing some videos in the future actually showing a full mobile process, because again, we have to deal with CSV files of getting them from our app into DraftKings or FanDuel, because they don't allow us to directly interact with them. And it can be a little bit quirky on the phone. So I do want to put out some videos showing how that all works. But I think you can see that, yeah, a lot has gone into this, and there's still a lot more coming. We've got a long list of just quick fixes, things we want to clean up to just make this more of a seamless experience. There's a few bugs that we actually ran into on this that we're going to get squashed. But if anyone else has any suggestions, any questions at all, always happy to hear them. And yeah, we'll be sticking around for a bit to answer those questions. But again, if you want to check this out yourself, head to beta.sabersim.com. You'll be able to log in with your current SaberSim account information and play around with it. All that we do ask is that you just send Jordan a DM on the SaberSim Slack channel so we can get you into the beta channel and collect your feedback, because we've put it through the paces ourselves, but everyone builds labs a little bit differently, and we want to make sure that we've got all of the bases covered before we really push this live, because that's something we take very seriously. And that's why we're going to leave up the current version of SaberSim for the next few months at least, so that we're not pulling a fast one on anyone. We're not forcing you to learn something new. But hopefully in this presentation, you've seen why, again, it's not just a facelift. There's a lot of extra functionality in here. And our goal, as always, has been to make your life easier so that you can focus your limited time adding value to the process. Yeah, happy to answer any questions from here.
Yeah, I don't see any questions trickling in at the moment, but we are getting some pretty cool positive feedback from few different folks here. Stuart mentioned that the mobile features look great, and it's going to be huge not having to rush back to your desktop to make changes with late swap. We got some excitement about the min uniques and dark mode as well, so all very cool. Definitely a ton of people here requesting to get in the beta now, which is really exciting. I will say, and Andy, feel free to jump in here too if you think maybe some more information would be helpful. But as you guys are reporting any issues you are seeing in that beta channel, one thing I think that would be helpful, so that we can get things fixed as quickly as possible, if you run into a small issue, take a screenshot and grab the link of the page you're on, whether it's the build or step one or whatever. As soon as you see the issue, when you mention that issue in the beta channel, pop that screenshot in there, pop the link in. It'll allow us to get those things fixed a lot quicker on our end. So that would be super helpful. I know sometimes you run into an issue and then you step away and then forget about it later and you don't have the screenshot or the link, or something's hard to find. So as soon as you see an issue, if you see something small or not so small, grab a screenshot, grab the link for us.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome point. The more information we get, the easier it is for us to troubleshoot and then get it fixed. So screenshots, links, those are always helpful. And just any context you may have around, I was doing this and then that happened, that's going to be super helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll just check Slack quickly, see if anything has come in there.
We did get a question here quickly from Manny, and he said, are the Sims running for the beta app as well, so I can run my lineups with no issues for the slates going on? He says he plans to use it for a test today for the MLB main slate.
So yes. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I was thinking you were going to answer that one.
Okay.
But no, the Sims they're the exact same Sims. We're pulling from the same database for that. So any data that's showing up in the current app will be in the beta app. The only thing I would say is, because this is still beta, I would stress, have the other app ready. And I wouldn't wait till the last minute to do your first build with the beta app, just in case anything does go wrong. Another thing that is good to note is that builds in the beta app will automatically be pulled in to the current app and vice versa. So it's not as though if you have to switch between the two, you're going to have to start over from scratch. But I would just, again, because it is beta, because there are going to be some bugs we're going to have to get fixed, I would just don't wait until the last minute.
Yep, I totally agree. And a lot of us here on the SaberSim team, we've been using this for a couple weeks here. And I've been using this app here to actually enter lineups, so I would feel comfortable doing that. But I think Andy nailed it. Typically, I've got the old app up on another screen here just in case I run into an issue so I can get things fixed quickly. But otherwise, all projections, sims, everything should be working as expected, and you should be able to run lineups and actually use them for your builds here. So
yeah. So again, if you guys have any questions, any suggestions, let us know. We have a long list of things that we still want to add. This isn't as though once we release this, we're done working on it. That could be further from the case. So we're always collecting more feedback about the product in general. But please jump in, play around with it, and let us know what you think. But yeah, I think that's good for now. We'll still be hanging around in Slack. So if there are other questions people have, just ping us there, and we'll be happy to help. But thanks, everyone. And again, we're super excited to get this out.
Yeah, enjoy. Thanks, guys.
See you, everybody.